Quite the crew across from us this evening. Brian, welcome.
Thank you.
Thank you for being here. We're looking forward to your presentation tonight.
Well, thanks for having us. Yeah.
Hey, everybody, this is Brian's first presentation.
Yes.
We're excited for you.
Thank
You're
you.
gonna do great. Give you a little round of applause. I learned that through all these years.
Thank you. All right. So can we start? Okay. So I'd like to start with having two kick us off.
So it's my honor tonight to introduce Brian Shear. He's our Director of Safety and Security. There's been lots of work, as we all know, with safety and security with the district from the task force into this year. And he's done a great job since starting the position. And he's just gonna dive into some focus areas and has a great panel here. So I'll let him kick it off and take it away.
All right. Well, thanks too. And thanks for having us. Dr. Dan, thank you. So alongside me, got a great panel, but before we let them introduce themselves, I just wanted to show this slide because I'm kind of proud of it. Okay, Tu and Lori really like this slide. It's true. So we got Captain America and Spider-Man. I know Lori's so happy.
I love it. I made that slide.
Yeah, there it is. So yeah, district safety is stronger than ever. And it's because of a great team that I get to work with at district office. And some of those folks are on the panel, but these two gentlemen are chief of police and our deputy for Bonnie Lake and Sumner. So I'm gonna kind of let them each talk a bit here, their names and what they do, and then hand it back off to me and we'll get started.
Perfect, thank you. So I'm Mark Berry. I'm the police chief in the city of Bonnie Lake. This is Deputy Chief Annie McCurdy from the City of Sumner Police Department. And we're here tonight to kind of talk to you about some of the ongoing collaborative efforts we have with the See Something, Say Something safety measurements going on in Sumner-Bonney Lake School District. And this really is collaboration between Sumner Police Department, Bonnie Lake Police Department, and the Sumner-Bonney Lake School District. We're meeting weekly, if not multiple times a week, just to go over this and make sure we're all on the same page. So I'm really going to talk about situational awareness and lockdown a little bit and just discuss what we're teaching to all staff throughout the schools. And then Andy's going to talk about our new campus safety officer SRO protocols to go forward with. So the first thing we're looking at.
Oh, so go ahead. Let's just introduce the panel real quick.
Okay.
Sorry about that.
Well, I'm
my fault.
stopping my time now.
Yeah. Stop your timer. You'll get your time, I promise.
So
Just, yeah, Andy, you want to
Oh,
go
you're
ahead?
good.
Andy McCurdy from Sumner PD.
Jeff Baines, principal at Sumner High School.
Lisa Brozovich, principal at Crestwood Elementary. Gina Longman, principal at Eli Hill.
All right, I'll need the clicker back. No.
This clicker is gonna be.
I know.
I need the clicker. All right, so start with our promise. As we all know, we're here to know, value, and support every student, helping them graduate ready to pursue a promising future. Okay. And we also want the board to know, and just, I know you guys already know this, but just the relationship to our future ready goals. These are embedded in our strategic plan, so they are front and center of central to our work across the district. So I just wanted you to see that. We also, safety is deeply embedded in a lot of our policies in the district, and these are just a sample of some of them. There are more, but we definitely wanted the board to see the connection with this to district safety. Just a little bit of background, safety is connected to our strategic plan, like I mentioned. We also, as you know, in 2022-23, we had a year-long district task force. Many of you on the board and many in the room were part of that. And it was a great task force. We also had a student that year, which was fantastic. A lot of great thoughts from that person. And then this summer, as Tu mentioned, I had the great fortune to be asked, and it is a real privilege to be the Director of Safety and Security for the district. So we established that this past summer. Foundational to safety work is there's quite a few frameworks out nationally. This is just one of them. Link that in for the board to take a look at. It is quite large. If you've looked at it, it's 92 pages, but it does serve as one of the foundational pieces of work, and it underpins all of our safety work across the district. So you can see the 4 areas. Some of the frameworks might have 3, others have 5, but this particular framework talks about some really key areas, and you will see tonight when we start to talk through some of our protocols, those 4 things being called out. Our promise in action. Tonight, I want to unveil the 5-star safety plan. And it is 5 areas: access, communication, partnerships, supplies. And tonight, we're going to focus on K-12 alignment. Okay. So happy to come back to the board at your request if you'd like to unpack those other 4 areas on the left. But for tonight, like I said, we're going to talk about K-12 alignment. So the panel will do a little bit of reintroducing, not their names, but just how they're serving in the district. But this is the topics tonight. We're going to talk about SRP, Standard Response Protocol. And board, thank you for adopting that protocol along with the standard reunification method. Both of those were adopted by the board in the spring. The 4 pillars of the SRP protocol are lockdown, full and modified, evacuation, and shelter. The officers will actually talk about that tonight, how in our all hazards training, we hit on all these in lots of different types of responses to safety. You know, so they're threaded throughout the protocols. And then I should mention that Brian Kalin couldn't be with us tonight, so I will be taking his slides. I'm not going to spend a lot of time on them because I really would like Brian to do that. So maybe at a different time, we can get that out there, but I will touch on a few areas for Brian. So that focuses on the safety and security at our venues. So we've done some work on that this year. And then, as the officers mentioned, they're going to talk about the all hazard staff training that we're doing in all of our 16 school sites. Started last year and we're continuing this year. And that's been a lot of fun. These 2 guys have been amazing. So it's been fun to work with them. And then Andy's going to talk about the work that we've been at for about 3 months now between Bonnie Lake PD and Sumner PD to put together a CSO, our campus safety officer, and school resource officer training module and field guide. Other critical connections to safety are, as you guys all know, mental health and our multi-tiered system of support for behavior. So with that, I do want to mention that Chief Barry and Deputy Chief Andy McCurdy, they both are staff trainers, district trainers. They both sit on our advisory council for safety in the district. Besides just being fantastic professionals and great human beings, they have been well received and gotten a lot of great feedback from the staffs that we visited. And so I want to thank these 2 guys publicly for their work. And I mentioned Brian won't be here tonight, so I'll quickly go through a few of his slides. And then I want to thank our principals, Jeff, Lisa, and Gina, who represent different levels. And I wish I could have all the principals here, to be honest with you, because they all could share a different lens on each of their sites. But thank you guys for being here. I know it's been a long day, so appreciate you. Okay, so with that, I'm going to turn it over to Chief Barry.
Okay.
There you go. Now you can start.
We're gonna go part 2. Here we go. So I'm going to talk about all hazards and situational awareness, and then we're going to talk about lockdown drills. One of the things that happens frequently, especially when you bring in law enforcement trainers, people hear about hazards and they start thinking it's always going to be active shooter. It's always going to be active shooter. And while that is a concern to us, we want to really make sure we're talking about repeatable skills that are used for all hazards within the school. So while many of us have heard about run, hide, fight, for example, that can apply to many different things, right? If we have a fire drill, that is a run event, right? Maybe not running, but actually moving out of the building. If we have an earthquake, right? That is a hide event, hiding under desks, hiding under barriers. So it really is teaching them to recognize that these skills can be used for a variety of things, and just to acknowledge that those dangers are out there and we can be prepared about them. Our objectives in the situational awareness class is to talk about self-awareness first. And that is really, where am I at? I know some of the groups that we come to with Sumner-Bonney Lake, we talk about where's our head, where's our heart, right? Very much the same thing on a day-to-day basis. Where am I? What is my self-awareness? Am I really here? Am I in the game? So talking about how to recognize that, how to know where they're at, which then leads us into situational awareness. Situational awareness, of course, is what's going on around me. And a really good example of that is We've all done those events where we've walked out of maybe a facility at nighttime in the dark to the parking lot and the hairs on the back of our neck go up, right? That is situational awareness. That is your subconscious telling you it's recognizing threats and you need to respond. So it's really kind of developing on that and recognizing what threats could be and then having an action plan to go with that. We do go over what our action plans are, but one of the big portions about that is making sure that all of the staff members know that they are the subject matter experts for their area. Sumner-Bonney or Sumner High School is different than Eli Hill, is different than Tahali Heights. Each of those teachers should know what the concepts are, but then we have to twist that very specifically to work their site, which takes us into the standardized response to violence. That's an active shooter response. What can they expect from the police? What can they expect from the fire department? What really is our program? And then we do go a little deeper into that police and fire response and even 911 dispatch, just so they can walk through it. We try to do this in a very low trauma way. We don't have gunshots going off. We don't have sirens going off, but we do want to discuss it, right? Let's not pretend like it doesn't exist. Let's think about it ahead of time so we at least have a plan. From that, we go a little bit into Cooper's Color Code, which is talking to them about situational awareness of where they should be. Real quick examples, condition white, that's me sitting in the parking lot waiting to go home, right? Condition yellow is I'm alert, but I'm not really active, right? So I'm driving, I'm expecting people to cut me off, do whatever they do on the roads, but life is good. That's where we want to be, right? And then condition orange is, hey, I see the brake lights ahead of me. I need to start taking action. I slow down. And condition red is full on brakes, right? I'm really active. So just kind of giving them those tools so that they can be aware of their situation and also their self-awareness. From there, we move into a class evaluation. Again, this really goes back to everyone being subject matter expert of their classroom, of their building. How do I lock down an exterior door versus an inward opening door? What do I have in my classroom? Where are my exits, right? And that exit could be for a fire drill. That could be for an active shooter event. That could be for volunteer, a myriad of things so that they have a repeating core skill with them. From there, we move into the second portion, which is lockdown drills. And this really is demystifying lockdowns. What is a full lockdown? What is a modified lockdown? What do we do to move between those, right? How do we lift those? Does everyone know how it's initiated? And just talk through that, because sometimes we'll find there's a weakness, right? Maybe Mark is in charge of calling the lockdown, but Mark's out sick today. What happened to our program? So making sure they walk through it with their very specific program, we find our weaknesses and we build on that. Lastly, kind of talking about the school district protocol and what's coming in the future. Signage that's coming, audible signs, all the things we can do to evaluate incidents that have occurred and how do we move forward, right? Next week, we're gonna be doing the Lahar evacuation, right? That's an all hazard, that's a run issue. And so it's just really repeating throughout all the different hazards we have, kind of some things for them to be aware of, have a plan ahead of time. Okay.
So I'm going to talk for a minute about the community campus safety officer and school resource officer field guide and training modules. So the legislature passed HB 2311 back in 2019, and that ended up being codified in RCW chapter 28A. The statute requires that school districts provide certain training to campus safety officers and school resource officers. It actually lays out 13 specific categories of instruction for classroom training. It also requires on-the-job training that be documented in a certain way and be provided by experienced safety professionals who have certain background training qualifications and such. And that they also, for non-school resource officers, they have a series of check-ins that they have to do. The problem was when the legislature rolled out this, it was not very well publicized and most school districts didn't even know that this law existed. Back when the law rolled out, I was the chief of police for the city of Covington and had done a lot of work with Kent School District to develop their campus safety officer program. And we ran a summer academy for their campus safety staff. They actually have armed security staff in their schools that drive marked police vehicles with lights and siren and everything too. So we had for a number of years been providing them with their summer academy trainings. And kind of one of the things that we were working on is how do we take these experienced professionals and how do we start to take these really important concepts that are required in this training and not just start from scratch with people who've already been doing this job for a long time, but really start to figure out how do we take the experience and training they already have. How do we help them be self-aware of, why these laws were created, what some of the negative impacts are of the criminal justice system on our students and issues of equity and trauma-informed principles and such. And how do we roll out this training in a way that's actually going to change behavior and create some measurable goals for our security professionals. So when they go out there and do their job, we're able to check in and see whether or not they're doing it correctly. Eventually, I was hired by OSPI to create the curriculum for the state for campus and safety officers and school resource officers. And then when I came to Sumner-Bonney Lake School District last school year, we started trying to work to get it done. But this year, we've been able to put the work in to really collaborate with a lot of different groups to make sure that they had the training that's really required now. OSPI actually and the RCW actually designates that the education service districts are the ones who provide the training, but they have not done that. So we've been slowly working through having monthly morning trainings with the campus safety officers and school resource officers to work through these different blocks of training. And then we have a portfolio they put together where they do self-reflective journaling on each of the different topics. And they describe their understanding of the specific topic, personalize it to their experience, their qualifications, their training, their needs, and as well as their abilities. And then ultimately come up with an action plan about how they're going to make sure that they meet the objectives that the legislature intended with the passage of the law. And I think when you read through there, it's things like constitutional rights of students, the child adolescent development, trauma-informed approaches, recognizing and responding to mental health issues, educational rights of students with disabilities, bias-free policing and cultural competency, local national disparities in use of force and arrest of children, collateral consequences, resources available in the community, de-escalation, restraint and isolation laws, different FERPA acts and requirements, as well as restorative justice principles. And this is a lot of good work that Sumner-Bonney Lake School District was already doing, but the data was not really being collected about what the impact was of having SROs and CSOs in our campuses. So that's really the work we've been doing, and they're currently working through developing their portfolios. Bonnie Lake has a new school resource officer just started due to retirement of the previous school resource officer. And then we're Officer Watson, who's our SRO in summer, is being promoted to sergeant. And so we have a new SRO that's going to start next school year as well. That's a really good opportunity for us to kind of reset and get these SROs off on the right foot to have the training they need. So that's kind of one of the big things we've been working on, and should have it. I'm hoping to have a lot of it done by the end of this school year, and then next year we'll kind of go back and refresh it all.
Brian, back to Brian.
Okay, and so I mentioned that Brian could be here tonight, District Athletic Director. We have been working the last 3 months on coming up with, like the school sites, some protocols for the athletic department. And so like schools, venues have potential issues, right? And so we have developed a plan, and you'll see the protocols. I'm not going to spend a lot of time unpacking the protocols, but I at least want you to see that, like the schools, we have protocols in place, and there are still progress in work, I should say. So, but the focus is stadiums, gyms, and fields, and here are the prep situations. One thing that I would like the board to know is we'll be communicating these safety protocols in a variety of different ways, but mostly it's just putting them visibly, right, in front of the concession stand, side entrances. So announcers at games can say, we have safety information if you'd like to learn more about how to get out of this venue, or you want to learn more about district safety. We can just point them to go to the board and they can read about it. Obviously, we're not going to make a speech during a game, right? They didn't come to hear that. So, but that's one of the simple ways we're just going to get the message out. And then we're also unpacking a new standard. Al, our communications director, has been working with Brian and I, and we are going to be starting that communication this spring through the summer, but we are moving towards a clear bag expectation when we go into our stadiums, much like graduation, concert venues, professional sports venues. I think we're all kind of used to that now. And this is something that we think is important for the safety of our kids and our staff and our community. So we will be training Brian runs an annual training for coaches and his event workers, so this will be unpacked during that time. Typically does that at the end of the summer before the school year starts. And then here are some of those slides that I talked about. I'm gonna kind of get to since he's on, I kind of like Brian to do this, but these are some of the resources that we'll have up at those areas that I mentioned earlier. Okay. And then here's standard response protocol. So what I want you to really see in the next few slides as I kind of click through them is that we are working on protocols. Yeah, and you have them in your packets. I didn't list all the protocols just because we don't have time, but here's earthquake, previous slide. One thing I want you to see, and the principals will talk about this as well, is that they're symbols. And this is really important for our ML kids and our students in the younger grades that don't have their language established yet. So when teachers are teaching, we're also showing these symbols so that they can understand what we're trying to get across here. So the left is evacuation and the pink is reunification, which Jeff is going to talk about in a little bit. So there's the protocol and there's lockdown. Okay, easy to see that, right? And there's the protocol, and then the rest just are the slides that we're using and as we're teaching in this case, our coaches and our event workers. Okay. Mr. Vans, you're up.
I am. Okay, so I'm gonna focus more specifically on the reunification. I would say that one of the heaviest thoughts you have as a principal and a building administrator is how do you get the kids back to the parents in case of an emergency? If you know, you've seen the tragedies on TV, and for me, the biggest part that gets me more is watching the parents waiting, and whether it's good news or bad news, and just the strain and the stress of going through that, and just going through that myself during the earthquake, and me being here and my daughter being in a field somewhere in Enumclaw and not knowing where the heck she was. But you know, it's stressful. So we really want to focus on unification and making it well known, not just to our staff, but to our kids. And also the key is getting it to parents and for them to understand it. So we have a lot of information up here, and I'll try to go through that in my 5 minutes or less here as we go through. So when we talk about reunification, so an event has happened, decision has been made to evacuate the building. And for us, it's on the map right by Gina there. We're gonna evacuate to Sunset Stadium if it's feasible. Our alternate site is Sumner Middle School. You know, if there's poles down in the middle of Sunset, obviously we can't evacuate there, but that's where we're gonna be. We could have all of our school there. We do take advantage of some of the phase one out on the grass, but if we're in a full evacuation, we're pulling everybody to the stadium, so we have them all in one place. If it's pouring down rain and weather's a factor, we can squeeze them into the home and the visitor side. It's really packed, but we can't get them in there. So we do have a backup plan for that as well. But so we're out in the stadium. Incident command has made a determination based off communication with law enforcement and district that we're gonna bring the kids or the parents in to pick up their kids. And so that's the reunification process. And in my dream world, I'm gonna say everybody's gonna stay right where they're lined up on the field, and the parents are gonna drive slow into the parking lot if it's accessible, or they're gonna go slow down Main Street. But we all know it's gonna be a panic situation. So what we've done throughout this process is we're going to have our students on the field, and we're gonna use the fence at the stadium to be the barricade between parents and students. And parents are gonna come to the ticket booths where they currently are to check in. I'll show you the sample of the card here in just a second. We will then have runners that are already established. We'll run to the specific teacher, find little Jeffy, hand that card to the adult that's with those kids, and then they will be escorted to right by the portables on the other side, on the west side there, and they'll meet and greet their parents at the gate. So that's a big process. I took about a minute and a half to explain it, But what we do with staff, we go over all those different protocols with staff, and we break it down at the beginning of the year. We do reminders throughout the year. We will do what we call a tabletop reunification plan, where we'll walk through that with our teachers, and the teachers walk through it with our students. This is what's gonna happen, so forth and so on. So we do that. Our first thing we do is we get kids where they need to be. So they know in an evacuation, because like Officer Barry was saying, a lot of the times we're evacuating that in case of a fire, maybe there's a bomb threat, whatever the case may be, that's where we want to get them. So we're gonna get that. And so we go through all those different pieces of that reunification plan, step by step, because I think one of the things that, the pillars that Brian talked about was being prepared. I think being prepared is the most important thing, because that's gonna eliminate a lot of the stress and strain. And I'm really thinking of staff when I say that, because when you're in that situation, I was just sharing with Bill a situation that I had up north. The adults were probably more on edge than our kids were. So if they're not prepared, that's where they're gonna be. If we're prepared, I think that's gonna help with that calmness. So every time a parent comes to pick up little Jeffy, they're gonna fill out that form. They're gonna fill out the top half that you can see that's not upside down. I did not do the slides. I just wanted to make that known. Just kidding, Brian. Just kidding.
That is,
Brian's done a great job with these. So what happens is we check the parent in, and we check their ID, and then our runner goes and gets our student. They come back to pick up. We have them sign one more time to make sure the signatures match. And they show us their ID one more time. And if they do match, they go off and they'll exit out onto Valley. And so then we're good. If they don't match, then we're not gonna release them, and then that's usually when incident command is called and we deal with that situation or whatever we need to do to deal with that.
Jeff, can you talk about the protocol?
Which one?
Go back, yeah, there you go, on the left.
The protocol for the sign in and out?
Yeah.
Go ahead if you wanna.
You want me to?
Yeah, go ahead.
Well, no, Jeff's doing a great job. This is the protocol for our school district, and so I would want the board to know that we will send this out through newsletters. Elle's department will get this up. We'll have it. This is not something that's in any way secret. We really want this out there. And so this really is how we communicate what that controlled release looks like. When they come to our reunification site, what we're expecting our parents to do, and it's really simple. Please come to this site and bring your ID. And we can have students send that out by cell phone. We can use all of our communication devices and methods in the school district, which we will, but we'll definitely be utilizing our kids to get that simple message out. And then when they arrive, it's everything Jeff talked about. So sorry to interrupt, Jeff.
No, it's okay. And we have that in the office, and then like our walk around conferences in the fall, we'll have those out. We can have a table out with that. We do weekly newsletters that we push out on, is it S'mores, I think it's called. So those are the ways we let the parents know. And I think it's important that the parents understand this. Again, it goes the same with our staff and our students, that being prepared and that knowledge is critical for that. So we will get that out. And Brian did a nice job of grabbing our bin. This is our high school bin for our reunification. It's located right at the ticket booth where the parents will check in. So we always know where it's at. Kel Garrison does the emergency preparedness at the high school. He'll make sure that it's loaded and ready to go every year. Within that, we have a Skyward notebook, and so we will need to update that as we get new kiddos and they come and go. So in all of that, what you see on the slide is what you see in front of you. We've got the map. We would have signage. Really for us, we would have one sign or one alphabet group per table, just because of the size of our school. I would imagine that Bonnie Lake's pretty similar to that with the size of their school. And again, that's to keep people spread out a little bit from gathering up. But it all comes in that bin. It's got all of our signs. We don't need to look for anything in case of a situation where we have to reunify. And again, that's a preparedness piece in doing that piece. Whoa. Oh, I overshot the runway. That is a preview. But really, other than that, it's the key is the knowledge. And I'm not naive enough to know that if it comes to a situation where we're out there reunifying, we're gonna lose some kids. They are gonna run and they're gonna take Officer Berry literally, and they're just gonna get in their cars and go. But what part of our evacuation plan is that our staff will take roles. So we'll know who wasn't in those original lines when we're out on the field. So if little Jeffy decided to bolt, we'll know ahead of time that he did not evacuate. Now, that doesn't give Jeffy's parents any ease of mind knowing where he's at, but at least we know that he's not somewhere else. And then if we deploy our search and rescue team, we could look for those students that are missing. But realistically for us, we know older kids are gonna just get up and go. But we're gonna try to maintain that and limit that as much as we can. And we think by the knowledge and them knowing that, hey, you're gonna get, we're not gonna keep you here all day, that's gonna be helpful. Sorry. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, so I am going to talk a little bit about the emergency drill schedule and information that we have. And again, the see something, say something. And I have to start right away with the fact that the see something, say something is really working. We had a DoorDash recently at the front door, and he was taking a picture to let them know that he did deliver it. And I had 3 teachers call and say, somebody is taking a picture at the door. So it really is working when you say, see something, say something. So it does happen. So we're doing a great job with that. And emergency preparedness. So we were speaking about what we need. And I think this image up here really tells you we need to be prepared. So every staff member, this is Jeff, I believe. Every staff member needs to be equipped with what we need to be prepared for whatever emergency comes our way. The prep situation. So we are at every school, and I think that's the significant importance here tonight too, is about how we are K-12 aligned. So it's nice to hear Jeff was going over reunification. I'm sitting there thinking about that's exactly what our bends look like. We have a procedure at Crestwood and at all of our elementaries or middle schools or high schools, and how we are going to reunify our students with their parents. So again, the prep situations for each drill here, evacuation, fire, lahar, we are prepared for whatever that emergency may entail. We have 8 required state drills that we do, and I'll talk a little bit about the schedule. We have 2 fire drills, we have lockdown drills, we have a shelter in place. So no matter what, if we're sheltering in place at Crestwood and there's a shelter in place down here at district office, we are following the same procedures. And then I want to speak just a little bit too about the tabletop exercise of an active shooter. So 8 years I've been at Crestwood Elementary, and I've been in the elementary world as a teacher as well, not just as an administrator. And, it weighs really heavy on our hearts when we think about ever having to be in these particular circumstances. And I just have to give praise to our officers here, Chief Berry and Deputy Chief McCurdy, because it was so tastefully done. Like it's one of those topics that you wonder, you definitely want your staff to be aware, but how do you even put that in front of children? How do you even run through that type of drill? And also with parents, right? We are really educating our parents, and the more that they know the verbiage, what we're saying to kids, we send out communication when we're doing a drill. This is what they're discussing at school. But I really have to praise the way it's presented because it was so tastefully done. And as you mentioned earlier, Chief Berry, we've practiced fire drills and then we're evacuating. We practice lockdown drills and we're hiding, or an earthquake drill. And so that height, that fight, that evacuating, kids know exactly what to do and where to go, and it really does fall along the adults. So the more prepared the adults are, the more understanding they have. Another huge takeaway was that situation, like assessing our rooms and knowing exactly like where would I evacuate, or if there was a threat and it was called outside, Where am I gonna hide actually in my classroom? Does it make sense that the lockdown drill says go over to this corner of the classroom? Well, that may not make sense if there's an intruder inside the building. So it was very well done, and the common language that we're hearing across the board, I think that's very important. Because just Gina and I were even talking earlier today about how over the years, it always comes down to what do you do in a lockdown? What's different with the modified? So that key vocabulary and understanding, and then just giving staff the resources of being prepared and having the tools they need so that they can act in a manner of they're not anxious, they're calm, it empowers them to make the decision. Because yes, it's not just gonna be the principal making the call in a certain circumstance. You need to have multiple people knowing exactly what to do, or it could be a teacher that sees something outside and needs to make the call that we should lock down. So I just wanted to point that out, that training has been so impactful and such a positive impact on my staff, my students, and my families. And then here's the emergency drill schedule. So we do go through a drill every single month. We have a document that we share at district office. We are practicing these drills, and then we debrief. We debrief after these drills so that we know what did we see, where were those mishaps, where were there some things that maybe some misconceptions or understanding. Something new that, our work with Brian, the safety week, it kind of is, I won't. But she's gonna
We
speak more. She's gonna speak more about safety week, you're the closer.
And there was some attitude to that, don't take my slide.
But I think it is something new this year that we haven't necessarily, and I am gonna let Gina talk more about that. She's gonna do a beautiful job, take the two clickers. But then just essentially, what should students and staff know? So no matter what level we're at, again, kids know their exit routes. Staff know where, the location for evacuation. Every school's campus is a little bit different, but we all practice and know exactly where to go. And then even for our substitutes, again, these standard procedures are so important because even substitutes coming in or a guest or a volunteer, we know how to support them when they're in the building if there's a drill or an emergency. So there's the SRP again. And then again, aligning with the 4 pillars, these standard response protocols, which I'm really excited about. So the elementary world, one of the things that we're working on, and it is a work in progress, is our little companion. So we mentioned earlier tonight that, if you go on an airplane, we go through standard procedures and you have a visual card and they go through and they tell you where the exits are and how to put on your mask and who do you need to take care of first. You're not any good if you don't take care of yourself first. But we want to have those visuals, and I can't think of a more inclusive way. I have 3 programs at my school of self-contained programs with developmentally delayed students. I have nonverbal students, and we use visuals all of the time. If you look around the room here, you'll see visuals. If you go to a restaurant, you're driving down the highway, there's a visual. So to have this little companion that will support our elementary kids and all the way up, our ML learners, it's important to have the visual along with what it is. So lockdown, you're gonna see the lock. Again, that's what Brian and I are working on, and all of the elementary principals are like, it is a work in progress. As we do this, we may find that we need to edit, evaluate, maybe we need more visuals, but I'm really excited about that card, and again, another standardized procedure that everyone would have. And so for me, that is a really important piece, I think, that we're adding this year that will be very helpful for all of our students. Okay, clicker to the right.
You took like all my stories.
We're good.
Okay, so what I wanted to go run through is some of the drill descriptions, and specifically, one of the things I wanted to continue to highlight that Lisa just mentioned is the symbols and the pictures and how important this is. So not only is it good for elementary school kids, where our kindergartners can look at this and of course be taught. Our green circle, for example, is evacuation. So we're all going to be leaving together. The pink or purple is reunification, the parent with the child. Those are things that we can teach, but in the past, if they are written down as we're learning these procedures, it's going to, we just know as human beings, it's gonna be more difficult to remember these things than a picture. That's why on airplanes, they have the little cards. It's not just our kindergartners or our ML learners or our kiddos that have a tough time reading, it's all of us. Because one of the things that we learned in our training with Chief Berry and Deputy Chief McCurdy is every human being responds to stressors differently. And so some freeze, some act, but you don't really know how you're gonna respond in that moment until you're in it. But if you have something this simple, that's already ingrained and you know how to respond and what the protocols are, and that's something you practice over and over again, you're gonna have you're more prepared. And that's across the board, not just specific populations. So the addition of these symbols, I think is just brilliant. I'm so excited about it. Not only that, it's aligned throughout the district. The alignment that I'm seeing right now, I've been in the district now for about 14 years, and I'm in that unique position where I have 1 foot in the valley and I have 1 foot on the hill. Unfortunately, my body's in the valley, so I'm always scared of Lahar. That I've had an irrational fear, although I was told the other day, maybe it's not so irrational, of that Lahar. I may be more in that orange zone that we were looking at earlier, just because it's always kind of in the pit of my stomach. But the alignment that Brian is bringing into this district, where when the students from Bonnie Lake High School come down into Eli Hill, they have the same background, the same information, they know these pictures the same as our Sumner kids. They're not speaking different languages, they don't have different experiences, it's aligned. And so for us at Eli, that's helpful, that's incredible. Not only that, K-12. So when you K-12 align, they're learning these pictures at an elementary level and then review all the way up. Even if you leave the district for a while and come back, it's the same common language all the way through, and it's like a well-oiled machine. It just makes sense. It's smart. So the earthquake drill, what's interesting about this, when we talk about alignment and things that we all do the same to help our students, this is probably the one that we're already doing the best job with. And that's because of the Great American Shakeout. It's always on the same day. We all do it at the same time across America, definitely in our state. And we all have these procedures, the kids have seen it. So thinking about just the Great American Shakeout and how the kids always know exactly what to do. They know how it works. They've seen the video, they know the drill. That's a really great example of how where we'll bring our district when every single drill is practiced in that way. So I love this because it gives us a good glimpse into when everybody's doing things in the same way and using the same verbiage, then kids just automatically know what to do and we will be a safer district because of it. One of the drills that I wanted to talk about is lockdown versus modified. We were talking earlier, and I don't think it's a unique perspective or experience for staff to say, what's the difference between a modified lockdown and a full lockdown, and the confusion between the two. That has been ongoing for many, many years and tends to be a little bit frustrating. When we had our training with these amazing gentlemen, not too long, we were about 2 weeks ago, I guess. One of the things that was my huge aha moment is that very topic, what's the difference between modified and full? And after the training, they gave us several scenarios. I loved it, it was amazing. They said, okay, in this scenario, what do you do? And in choral response, the entire staff said, modified or full. We were all on the same page, we understood it. Just from a scenario, we could quickly assess and decipher, and in one group respond, oh, that would be modified. Oh, that would be full. It's the first time I felt as a principal, everyone's on the same page. So that was an amazing feeling. Likewise, when we got to, let's see if I get to it. There's modified. I love this. Well, stay out and stay where you are. But kids also stay working on your work. That's Now, when I got to the active shooter drill, this is where my heart sunk a little bit. Because, and I don't know if you guys caught on to this or not, the smile maybe tells me you did. But when we were going over what to do with active shooter, this is something I thought that we were gonna excel at, because this actually happens to be something that Eli Hill has practiced, maybe even a little bit more often than some of the other schools. However, when some of the questions were asked of what would you do if, the varied responses from the staff, it was glaring how much we're not on the same page. And how different staff members were gonna respond in different ways that maybe is not to our best advantage. And I thought, okay, we have work to do. We have work to do, and we need to be on the same page here. And so what we're launching here, what Brian's pulling together, is exactly that. It pulls us into, you know, the same conversation, alignment, common language, common protocols and process, and it just feels safer with this. That's another example, shelter in place. I like that one. Lahar drill, we're very excited to. This is another thing I wanted to mention, being at Eli Hill. When we're doing our Lahar drills down in the valley, the hill is usually doing shelter in place. Now, at Eli Hill, we have students on the hill that come down, and the Lahar is not going to pick a time when the Bonnie Lake kids are not in the valley, because they haven't been trained yet.
You could ask.
So the fact that we're able to practice with kids who have been on the hill, let's say they're at Tahala, they're at Mountain View, they're at Bonnie Lake, and then, oh, they come down the valley to be at Eli, we're able to practice the Lahar drill with them. For a lot of them, it would be the first time. For the kids coming from Sumner, it's probably the 5th, 10th time, who knows? But we're all able to practice together. One interesting thing that was brought to my attention today, I had Bonnie Lake kids say, okay, so the Lahar drill is on Thursday, next Thursday, right? I said, yes, but you're in our PM session. And we're doing it in the morning, so you're not gonna be a part of that. And as I was saying that, I thought, that might be something we need to look at. Because if those kiddos are down, Lahar happens at 1 o'clock, that's PM group. And so just thinking through those things that in 14 years I haven't, I so appreciate, because it just makes everybody safe. Now, this is what I'm thrilled about. This is so brilliant, and thank you for not stealing my thunder on this one, because I'm super excited about it. When it comes to drills, we all as principals tend to decide when and which one. So we're not necessarily aligned except for that earthquake one. Everybody does earthquake in October, we know that, but other than that, we do them at different times. Usually most of us will do the evacuation drill or fire drill in September, then again, usually second semester for secondary, just for that practice and remembering, and some in between. But that doesn't necessarily mean that kids are gonna see a modified or a shelter or an active shooter or any of the others until November, December, later on. That's an issue. You never know when those things are gonna happen. So moving to this is something I'm so excited about. And that is making sure that K-12, we are all practicing these drills in the first 2 weeks. So within the first 2 weeks of starting school up, we are introducing and practicing the fire drill, the earthquake, the modified, the full, the shelter in place. We're talking about active shooter, and full evacuation and reunification. So in those first 2 weeks, which also gives us the opportunity to catch kids who didn't get it. So if they were absent today, we can catch them later. We are getting 100%, or hopefully, all of our kids are getting this, this education and this experience as they launch into the school year. I love this, I'm so excited. I'm also excited that as a group, because we tend to do grade band alignment, we can work through this together on how we'll do it. So I'm assuming the elementary schools will approach this slightly different than the high schools. What you see here is a potential high school situation where if we were to discuss in maybe 1 day or 2 days, depending on what works for each building schedule. First period fire drill, second period earthquake. I will be honest with you, this isn't my favorite option right here, only because that's a lot in 1 day. We could do first period fire drill, fourth period evacuation, or, well, actually we can do that, earthquake. And so you do maybe 2 a day. So it's kind of a slow roll in, and then you're reviewing over and over again. And maybe you're hitting different periods, so it doesn't impact just one. There's so many things that we can do, and to do it together as brave bands will be really exciting on how this grows. But I'm.
We just did it one a day for 6 days on
But-
those periods this
Yeah.
year. That's how we did it.
Yeah, and I know that's not something that everybody has aligned on, but I can see us doing that in the future, you know, depending on what we need.
And I just want to add to the Lahar part, because I mentioned that, yeah, we're on the hill, but even during that during that moment in time, we are educating our kids too about what is the valley doing, and also what is a Lahar, and sharing a little video clip. So we are all involved in the Lahar, so whether they are on the hill or in the valley, they do know what they should be doing, so.
Okay, well, thank you so much, panel.
You're welcome.
And the board, you can see the expertise here. Paul mentioned before we got started, just the teamwork, and this is, it's exciting. Very, very fortunate to work with a great team. As I mentioned earlier, this is just a sample of the team. We got a big team in the Sumner-Bonney Lake School District, so very, very fortunate. From our leadership at the top, our building leadership, our teachers, and our kids, just getting everybody aligned. So thank you so much. So as we wrap up, we are going to leave some time at the end for questions, comments. So I'm just going to go quickly through impacts on student performance. I mean, we know that having good safety preparations in place does impact performance, right? And so these are some areas that we want to highlight. Benefiting parties to strong safety systems. I mean, it goes without saying, right? Students are going to feel safer, more comfortable. Their schools are more welcoming. Staff, our families, our community, and just generally our society. Then equity, that's come up in the panel. Was very highlighted a lot, especially in the companion guide that was spoken about. But our goal in our district is to create environments where every student feels valued, supported, and safe. It's our promise. Really, it really is just our promise. What's working well? Well, it's on display tonight. Our partnership with law enforcement, our first responders, our principals, can't say enough about our principals. They're incident commanders. They make tough decisions. They have busy jobs. This, to be honest, is important to them, and it is, but they have so many other things on their plate. And so just aligning and working and collaborating together is going to make us all stronger and better. Our District Safety Advisory Council, really excited about the work. We met in December. It was great to unpack the subcommittee work from the task force and to hear about what's happening. And so that's exciting. Relationships with our community and our regional partners. Just to highlight one of those regional partners, we sit on a committee called the EPIC Committee, which is our 5 surrounding cities that meet about twice a month over in the city of Puyallup. And right now, what's the focus? Lahar, right? But the real thing that I want to highlight is just that partnership, getting to know those folks and knowing their names. So if we're in need or they're in need, we can help each other. And that is hugely important in our community. We talked about the director of safety being full-time.
I put
So-
that in there.
Yeah, she did. So thank you for that.
You're welcome, Brian.
Yeah, but you know what? It really is just a team effort. It is full-on team sport safety, like so many things in the district. So, but we are thankful we have that. And then we talked about K-12 alignment. You heard about that tonight. And so we're in kind of a draft stage. We're hoping to be live with our final protocols this fall. And so we're still going through a feedback process and having our council look at it and our first responders looking at it, everything before we finalize it. And then we'll train our principals and roll them out. And then finally, a lot of people in this room, these guys behind me, the tech department, M&O, business office. I mean, so many departments, the leadership team, the superintendents. I mean, I just could go on and on. All of it is so powerful to our work. And it really is a team sport. You know, it isn't one person, it's all of us. And board, thank you for your leadership as well. So where are some areas that we can improve? Well, student involvement. I mentioned the student that sat in our task force. And I really do want to see kids get more involved in safety planning, safety work. I think their lens. We are so fortunate to have great kids in this district, and we need to, utilize that, right? Leverage that asset. And so that's one area that I'd really like to see us work on. Community involvement. That's that continuous cycle of improvement. We're always looking for ways to look at our community, what assets are available. I'm learning a lot as a safety director, who's out there. Every week I get a name and like, wow, you gotta start tapping with that person. So, and these guys again have been fantastic to work with and their colleagues. And then the safety committees. I think this is an opportunity and just ensuring that we have safety committees in each building. They're robust, they're meeting regularly, and they are doing planning and some of that after action reporting that the principals talked about after drills and improving and that. And so we're also working that in central office. This year we're meeting again. We got all departments working together, and I've been working with our David Brower. Is he here? David and I and the superintendents were working on developing protocols for central office. So a lot of the protocols you saw tonight, we have them in place here as well. Okay, so board, thank you.
Question.
Yeah, absolutely.
I'm going to. First of all, I want to really thank you for the depth you've taken this on. I haven't seen digging into something that's so vitally important for our community, the staff, our students. Anyway, I really appreciate that. But in light of what happened today at Garfield High School, I'm wondering, have you heard how their protocols worked? Do you know about what happened at
I
Garfield?
don't.
Oh, they had a shooter, an active shooter. And a girl was shot in the leg at the bus stop in front of the school. So I'm really curious how they responded to that and what we could learn from it. Maybe.
Yeah,
So,
we'll definitely dig into that. Yeah.
Listened to a lot of news
Did you
today.
guys hear about that today?
Was it a single person was shot at a?
Yeah, just a single person, but it complete lockdown.
Right.
Which
Yeah.
of course,
Right, and you have to push the big red button, but that really is a shooting at a school and not an active shooter. And-
Yeah,
And
that's
that's
true.
kind of, but you
That's
absolutely
true,
have
that's
to
the
respond the same way
Right.
until you know.
yeah. But yeah, I'd be curious what you thought of. how they
I
handled
will
it.
say the training that Chief and I have been presenting, it is standardized throughout the county.
Mhm.
So there's a group called the K-12 work group where they get school safety professionals, police officers, firefighters, all together from all the districts across the county. And they've developed that curriculum based on best practices, but also whenever we have new events that come up, we refresh that curriculum. So we do constantly look at that and the feedback. And when we teach the class, we're talking about current events. We bring in real world events and show some videos. We don't show anything bloody or traumatic or anything like that, but we do show some videos of success, and we want to build, a perspective of strength in the students. And
Absolutely.
so we will take whatever local events happen and try to relate it to
Yeah.
the trainings that we're
It's
doing.
good to know the difference between an active shooter and
Yeah,
a shoot.
because sometimes you do hear all these things, but
Yeah,
there's an
it's
active
like-
shooter event. It is scary no matter what.
I
It's
know.
tragic no matter what. But sometimes it is a targeted shooting, just happens to be on a school property.
Right, right. Well, it was very timely in an
Yeah.
unfortunate way, but.
Yeah.
Mhm.
But now we'll go read the news stories and figure out if we
Yeah.
can learn anything.
I mean, I could go now or
Yeah.
later, but I think, first of all, thank you so much. Clearly, this has been a thoughtful process. It's taken a lot of work and time and brains coming together and creating those partnerships you're talking about. I really hope, and these meetings are recorded, I hope really everyone tunes in and watches this because it's such good information. So in that kind of same thread, one of the things we always hear about is that communication piece. Kids have phones and they are right on them and they're letting their parents know probably most of the time some misinformation. Knowing that it's active and things are evolving and you're trying to provide safety first and then that communication piece as well. How can parents anticipate being informed of certain emergencies?
Yeah, I think, so our principals here know this well, but they are the incident commanders, right? And so district will support them when there's an incident, but one thing is, kind of gets back to teaching the protocols. Please don't get on your phones. We got to communicate that to the students. We need to set that expectation. Will they? Yeah, some will. I mean, it's been mentioned a few times, human beings are going to do what they do, but we need to make sure we're teaching that expectation. I think it's a lot more of a challenge at the secondary level, but even our elementary kiddos have these phones in their hands, right? And so I think the message we want parents to understand is, as soon as we can get information to you, we're going to, right? But sometimes we barely got it and then it's already out there. And I know that is really tough for folks like Al, who's trying to help, get a message out and do the heavy lifting for principals to get their messages out. But it is a challenge. You're right, 100%. I think it's twofold, talking to parents about that, educating them, but it's also communicating to our kids and giving them the why behind it. Because we don't want to put misinformation. So often kids will hear something, they put it out. Now you've got 25 parents sitting at your door and you're like, we just got started.
Yeah.
And will give us a few minutes.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So they could anticipate email, like social media, like what
Yeah.
are some ways that they would?
Parent
Parent Square,
Parent Square would be
Yeah.
effective.
robocall. I mean, our communications department at the district is amazing.
So
And
they're looking
so
for accurate
just,
information.
yeah, it's really about that, right? It's like, we want to make sure we're getting accurate information into our parents' hands so that they know what's going on, not what they heard
Right.
through the texting, the rumor mill, or what's put on Facebook, or all the different ways that people get information.
Brian, does it also have the emergency communication guide?
Mhm.
If this happens, then this is how you hear.
Yeah.
Email, website, X, Y, Z.
Yeah.
Right, different
That's right.
scenarios, with different methods of communication.
And I
Yeah.
think something that we also recently learned too in this process is, again, making sure that multiple people know what that communication is, because you can't rely on the one person or the principal, but how many should know this and how to communicate. And then even, Brian, we were talking about like every backpack in every classroom or every staff member that has that, there's a list of that as well, because you could be the person that might be sending out that initial communication or how to communicate. So yeah, we do think about that too. And no, we don't necessarily have it that much in elementary, but they have those little watches.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
They can send out things, and then it's educating the families on what to expect. Yeah.
Yeah,
Thank
just
you.
let you know, we'll also tie in with your information department so that we have a unified message and we will help you push that, right? We'll push it to local media as well as all of our social media so that everyone is getting it. The main thing for us is to time with what is your message? Make sure there's no operational concerns because we get one chance. And if we put out the message wrong, we change it, it's already out there. So it is to slow down, make sure we have a unified message led by the school department, and we will help you push it out.
And we've done that in the last 2-3 years. Great partnership with both cities, city of Sumner and Bonnie Lake, where we've sent unified messaging out in unison so that it wasn't on.
If I can just add to it, one of the mantras in the training is about, there's a fine line between paranoia and preparedness, right? And so we talk a lot about how, not just as educators, not just as police officers, but also as parents and your children, you should be talking about and planning for these events. And it shouldn't be traumatizing in the way you approach it. But you should, your child, even a young child, should know how and when to communicate with the parent that they're okay, or where they are if they've been relocated and stuff. And I think what we also need to caution our kids about is how to discern accurate information so they're not perpetuating these issues, and teach them about how to verify things. And it's really important that they relay to you how they are doing, not about rumors and hearsay and other things like that are going on. So again, I think having those conversations with kids, even young ones. I'm a weirdo. I mean, I'm a cop. Both my parents were cops. I have one brother. He's a cop too. I was raised a little differently than a lot. But I do think there are some important lessons about that side, about having those tough conversations and having our kids be ready at any age about how to communicate. So, because again, the educators and the cops and the firefighters are gonna have their hands full just dealing with the emergency. And as much as we want to communicate with the parents, that's not the first order of business.
Of course,
So,
The key is to go back to what Lori said, is have that protocol in place. And then for us to communicate that with parents, so they understand that it might be within the hour, but it's not gonna be right away. And the partnership with the law enforcement is really important too, in terms of just going through that with some situations. It was really effective. It calmed the parents down. They knew. We still had the dad pounding on the classroom door because there was an active shooter in the classroom. No, I wouldn't be standing here talking to you if there was. So, we still have those, but it just helped the whole situation, that parents knew that if it came, when it was coming out from the district, whether it's email or parent square for us down here, so.
Great, thank you. Other questions?
Well, first of all, thank you guys for your leadership in this, and I so appreciate the K-12 approach. I mean, I think that is so important, and there's tweaks in that, but no matter first grade, I mean, by the time you're 10th grade, 11th grade, which we would think would be the ones that could follow directions best, but we know that they've had it a lot. And so when I transitioned to being a grandparent instead of an employee here, one of the things I found is walking my little guy to school each day or back is parents asking questions. And I know, we use this as an example, I know Beth and her folks did an amazing job with the silent dismissal. But we have parents that move in, move out and we have parents that don't listen, like their kids. And so one of the questions I have is plans to inform or educate. An example would be, one of the parents said, well, if we had a YouTube location for some of these where you guys did a piece, going back to Deputy Chief, what you said, I'm not adept at talking to my son about a lockdown. But if there's something there that we could watch and have that discussion afterwards, would that be something that, and I'm not trying to make the district more work, but I probably answered the silent dismissal question about 25 times in 2 years, 3 years, whatever it's been. And that's, it's like one of those, well, you probably weren't here last time they explained it or that. But here's a place you could go, or the district could have here's a place you could go for more information, that type of thing. It's just something to think about, but our parents are so desperate to know how to help and how to support. Even something as simple as in that, parents, don't jump in your car and come straight here. Because we know from the tragedies around the country that we can't get our first responders there because the parents have clogged up the roads and it takes forever now. So just something to think about, but I have heard that it's only one school, very loud school. I mean, a school, but it's just something that's been brought up is how can we have this and what are resources that I could go work with my child anytime, especially when I need to reteach.
Thank you for that.
Yeah, that's a great idea, because most of the time it's what families, they can't see, right? So they want to know, I understand that you're doing a fire drill, but what does that actually look like for my child in your school? You can give me the blurb of what that looks like, but.
Well, and something was said tonight, I know back when I was in the building, there was a lot of parents that were having, and professionals having trouble with how we approached maybe back then the active shooter versus what I heard you guys talk about. And to be able to have that put at ease, I think would be a huge piece too.
Yeah, that's a good idea.
Having a video to explain the reunification process would be so nice, especially with our parents who have children in multiple schools. So one of my neighbors has 6 kids, so they're at Tahala, they're at Mountain View, and they're at Bonnie Lake. And to know what the reunification system is like, knowing it's the same in each place, but what does it look like? I think would be a great peace of mind.
Yeah, one of the things, and I'll just, we do have a video. And so we're gonna put this up for all the schools so that they have it. It's right there. So this is a slide in the safety slideshow that each of the schools will have. And I appreciate, Bill, what you talked about, and that really is why that's there. Because when we're up in front of a staff, or we wanna send something out to our community or our parents, show it to our kids, we can say, hey, this is what it looks like. Those visuals are important, just like the symbols. So that's an example. I do appreciate what you talked about. I think we can find different ways to do that, so.
If I can just mention one thing too, at one of the recent schools we presented at, one of the teachers was saying, hey, I'm also a parent with a child in this district. If I know something's going on, I mean, I'm gonna be torn between staying and protecting the children as a teacher versus going to take care of my own child. And the discussion we ended up having was that we need to also rely on the professionals that are responsible for our children. And I think that that does require that we do a lot of work to build legitimacy, that to show parents that we, as a collective group, know what we're doing, and we have those tools in place, we have the procedures, and if we wait until that event happens for them to be aware of it, it's gonna be too late. So I think that is an area I see of concern as well, where our staff and our parents need to know, hey, to a certain extent, we need to trust that our educators know what they're doing and they're gonna be handling it. But showing that is the part that I think is easier said than done. So
Yeah.
I know Brian has a personal TikTok channel that he should
There you
probably
go.
post that on, but,
Brian, can I get that channel?
He knows me well, he knows that.
Only for a little while.
Yes.
Thanks for that, though.
no problem.
Yeah,
Other questions?
Yeah, just a couple things, but I just wanted to say again, thank you. All this is great information. And that was one of the things I'd written down that Aaron touched on and Bill talked about a little bit too, which is when things happen. And you just mentioned it too, about building that trust. Parents, okay, they got this. I don't need to rush down there. That would be the ultimate goal. But when it comes to running a school district, everybody in this room puts a lot of effort into building trust with families, which helps us pass levies, helps us pass bonds, those sorts of things. Trust takes a long time to build and it's quick to go away. And I see it on social media. Parents obviously have first responder alerts set up on their phones, and they get an alert that says there's a fire incident at Bonnie Lake High School. And literally within 30 seconds of that going out, you've got people on social media saying what's going on. And their first inclination is they're mad at the district. And I know in those incidents that protocols are in place, but oftentimes the district is blocked from communicating, and it falls to your hands to communicate or be in charge of that communication. Is at least my understanding of it. So correct me if that's wrong. But every time there's something that happens in one of our schools, parents are angry on social media at the district every single time for not getting out communication fast enough. And so I just asked to reinforce that we find a way to work on that and make sure that parents can get timely information. I know you touched on making sure it's accurate. You only get one chance. I understand the challenge, but every single time there's even a fire truck that goes out, the parents are mad that they don't know what's going on and they're getting a text from their student. So it's just want to echo that parents do get upset very quickly with the district. I appreciate it. I actually had other questions, but they're all answered. I appreciate what the principals had to say about how they've identified these protocols and trainings and how they tailor them to students with different varying needs. So I really appreciated that. I would leave some ideas on the table of, when you talk about Brian, you talked about your reunification document. We can do all of this communication, and when an emergency happens, all that knowledge is going to fly out of the parent's head, and all they're going to do is that flight response to activate. And I'm wondering if there's a way to put reunification plans and things like that into a form that can be saved to their phones, like a Google Wallet or an Apple Wallet or something of that nature, that they can save it somewhere so that they don't have to necessarily retain the information. But as soon as an emergency happens, they don't necessarily have to wait however long it takes us to communicate. They can pull that up immediately and save to their phone and say, oh, okay, I'm gonna calm down. I should hear this, or I should do that. So I'll throw that out there. It's just, how can we better put that in their hands to save it for a rainy day instead of having to remember it in an emergency? While everybody on this side of the room, I know, is well-trained in how to react to an emergency, parents, their brains are gonna go
well, it's about their kids.
Yeah,
For sure. So we're all parents. Most of us are.
In having worked at the district, my first inclination with what Jeff said is like, I'm gonna tell my senior at the high school, yeah, you need to follow the rules and put your phone away and do this. But then I'm gonna turn up on my parent hat on and be like, you better call me right away and tell me what's going on so I can calm down. So it's tough, right? Like, how do we find that balance between good information and parents just, doing what they're trained to do?
I will say with the reunification though, I have ran a drill at an elementary level involving my PTA families. And one of the things though with the cards, so I do agree with you with like having that information there, but another purpose of the card is actually calming the parent. It's
Yeah.
giving them something to do while they're waiting in the line. Because you're right, and we have one that really acted it out, which very well could happen, and they're like trying to run to get their child. But they are out of sight from the parent, and they are giving them something to do. So that is the helpful piece, but I can see where you wanna have that information handy and ready.
Yeah, and just to add on to what Lisa talked about, thank you for that. It's also really important in reunification that you separate your check-in line from your release area, and you have that not 10 feet apart, but you know, if you can have it 50 yards apart would be even better, even walking around the building, because it's to her point, giving them a place to go. That's because what happens if you have your check-in and your release site close together, people get really frustrated. We don't want that. I got my card, they give me the other half, I'm now moving over to, now I'm doing something. I know I'm getting closer to my goal, which is to take my kid and go home, right? So I really appreciate what you had to say on that.
Well, I'm glad to hear that, because it was interesting when you put up the Alaska Airlines, in-flight safety thing. Every time I fly, people just block the whole, like, it's not even your turn to get on the plane yet. And you got all these people blocking the gate who are
Yeah.
not in the A group, they're in the
Yeah.
F group, but they're still standing in the way. And so I appreciate what you're saying about having thought through the physical space of actually, parents are gonna be very reluctant to wait in a line
Yeah.
in that situation, and so that's. really
And
good
there's
to hear.
still another layer, like we think about people, and when we go to our kids first and students first, but then you have all of the support staff that come wrapping around. And so we have multiple people down each one of these lines, and their sole purpose is to just continue to talk to families. Did you fill out the card? Oh, yep, they're getting your child. As soon as you hand that card in, they're gonna run around and get your family. So it's like that constant reminder that what are we doing? Because it's to Bill's point, when they don't know what it is, they're gonna make up their own stories.
Yes, I am.
We need authentic parenting to show anxieties and stuff. Sharon Foch.
That's who it was. Sharon was an R.
Okay, so
Literally was climbing up
He was crazy.
20-foot fence
Oh.
and screaming and yelling, and we're like, and you can see the staff just getting anxious and anxious. So, I mean, everybody else was this really nice mellow, and she's like, no, I'm gonna tell you what it's like.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You mentioned that you've done some of these drills, and obviously do them with students. This has been a big part of the presentation. We talked about you've done them with PTAs. Like, is it realistic to take that further?
Yes, I hope so.
Have days where it's like, hey, if you wanna come down, like, you're gonna do this,
Mhm.
and without students, maybe, obviously they don't have a school day, but if it's a chance for parents to see it in action.
And I think that's the growth area, right, is how can we get community more involved? How can we get more community members? The video idea, having a presentation in front of our staff. I mean, assemblies, any opportunity, you mentioned even levy, right? Any opportunity that we have that we can get our families involved. And this is a very highly motivating topic for families. And so even doing an evening event that they can come and actually visually see and walk through it, I think could be really beneficial. Yeah, very well attended. So, yeah, thank you. Those are
Thank
all
you.
great perspectives. Paul?
Sure, my question is real similar to Kevin's, but before I ask it, I've got to say all the good things too. I really like this slide, Brian, the 5-star plan. I like the fact that you pointed out, hey, we're only gonna work on the 1-star. And again, you brought a huge panel to show how big the topic of safety is. It's not a small, easy to define or easy to get at thing. It is something that we're constantly working on in large groups and with teams, and it crosses a lot of different areas. So thank you. But reunification is a major, it's hard to drill. It's hard to get your head wrapped around it. It's easier to say, oh, we have this drills with our students every single day, but parents are at work. They're not really thinking about reunification until it happens, right? I think it was prior to COVID, didn't you run a reunification drill here? And you learned a lot from it.
Yeah.
Have we done anything similar to that since?
So, I can't speak specifically about each building. I can tell you that we encourage tabletops in their drill package, and they get to make some choices. I would like our principals, doing a reunification drill because it is an opportunity, to practice. Here's what I would say. This year, we're kind of building the plans. We're trying to get all this stuff aligned. Come next fall, there's gonna be some clear tights. And one of those will be doing a reunification drill, because we can't put these plans in place and then not practice it. So even if it's a tabletop in the first year, actually, like, and Jeff talked about that, where he takes this support staff out and some of his other staff, and they sit and they tabletop it. Then we go to a live drill. That would be the ideal situation, and doing that once a year. So maybe doing the tabletop in the fall, making sure our bins are ready to go. We have the updated mappage and all that. And then maybe doing a live drill in the spring.
If you get parents involved and.
Get parents involved, you can ask for, the trick, having done these myself, the tricky part of reunification drills is you can't say, hey, whoever wants to come down, because it would take hours, right? So, if you can ask, 15 to 20 people to come down, tap some people and come and do a run through, a live drill with your kids on the field. And if you're done in a half hour, not 4 hours, which is what it would take if you ran a huge high school through something like that. Those are opportunities where we can learn a lot. So that we are working towards that in that alignment.
Well, that'll be good because, when I think of a reunification drill, as a parent, I'm always like, oh, I got a lot going on. I don't know if I really want to do it. I mean, how much different would it be than picking up my kid at school, right? I mean, I pull into the Crestwood parking lot and they open the door, make sure I'm the parent before they call my kid out. So how much difference is it gonna be? But you just explained, it's gonna be a lot different. And so I can see the planning that needs to take place. So thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome. Okay. Any other comments, questions? Well, thanks again for inviting us in, and panel, thank you.
Yeah, it's good work.
Great.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you so much.
Thank you, Rod.
We'll continue on with our meeting, but we're gonna take like a 90-second break. Can you use the restroom? We'll let you guys leave, so you don't have to stay any longer. You're welcome to, but thank you.
Thank you.
I know, thank you.
It was worth it.
Okay, welcome back. Next on the agenda is D, board procedures. We've been working on updating our board superintendent operating principles. In front of you, you have the most recent draft with pending changes. We need to decide under number 2 that the board acts as a body, what option for verbiage we want to, which one we would prefer to add to our operating principles. Are you raising your hand or saying number 1?
I'm saying number 1.
Not that we're voting right now,
No,
but
no.
go ahead and,
I like number 1. I like them both really.
okay,
And I mean, if I had to choose one, I'd pick number 1, but I can live with either or. I like them both. And I'm not so overly partial to number 1 that I would, debate it to death. I just wouldn't do it.
okay.
What do you think, Aaron?
I mean, really, they get at the same thing, really, kind of like Paul said, either one is fine. I think number 2 is a little bit, maybe leads a little bit more, positive, more partnership. Yes, that's all, but they really get to the same, same behavior and expectation, so I would, like Paul, I'd be fine with either. But I tend to lean positive, more toward the positive.
I say Deb's got a lot of experience on the board. What do you?
Well, I actually like both of them, but one certainly is a little bit more stronger than the other. And I think option 1 gets right to the point. But I also love the fact that it values teamwork, collaboration, and transparency. I just like the way it starts that way, which is option 2. So
I can also try combining them.
You're still in.
oh, that's right.
That's not option 3.
I I do like that first line as well.
Mhm.
Bill?
I'm like you, I think they both convey the message. My approach has always been to try to go to the positive, and I, just as I read it, I felt like number 2 was a little more on a positive note.
I would
But I can live with
definitely
either.
agree with that. Yeah, I would agree with that. I think it gives, the whole point of the document is to give board members guidance and framework and how to operate. And I think the more we can describe how that is, the better. And when you use words like, openly communicate and working together and making decisions, you're putting that thought out there that, oh, this is how, instead of being very like to the point and less descriptive, I like more description to just give, especially if someone's brand new to the board, they can read these and they can say, okay, these are some words that I can pick up on to describe how to operate, which is the whole point of the document. So, yeah, I definitely like that.
Great. So again, not that we're voting, but I think that what I'm hearing, unless there's strong opposition, that the positivity of option 2 is a direction we might be entertaining. Okay.
And this is a board superintendent operating principles, so it's a procedure. The board never really votes on it. We're just providing the superintendent input.
Exactly.
Now, if you looked at this, did I capture the other edits correctly?
I thought so.
I
Yeah.
did, it goes kind of fast, so
Yeah.
I just want to make sure. So what I'll do is take this and clean it up and then have it on the board agenda next week. And we can take one more look at it. If you like it, great. If not, we can change it again.
Thanks, Mike.
Perfect.
Yeah, good job.
Any topics for discussion this evening?
Not really discussion, just a reminder. I think I know we can do very little about this, but that's the carpooling issue for parents. But it is important, so I'm just gonna kind of job on it until the end of the school year. That if we get and encourage teacher organizations to really talk about it as well amongst their members and realize that they do have members that sometimes quietly are working and are too shy to reach out and ask for rides for their kids. So the more we talk about it, maybe the more those quiet parents will speak up and reach out to their students or their child's friends, parents, and get those rides that are needed. So again, it's just promoting it, encouraging it. Like Bill said, it's tough. We're in a tough situation. There's sometimes liability purposes, we can't get overly involved, but we can certainly job on it, talk about it, and encourage it. So that's.
Thanks.
No, I had 2 items. The first was, we just started discussion, I think, on the Parks and Recs agreement with the district.
Yeah, so you're going to be asked soon to what you'd like to do in terms of extending the current agreement.
Okay. And for me, one of the things I was wondering is if we could get a report, kind of, and please, others jump in, but what are the offerings, participation data, costs, et cetera? I mean, current status and that. I do believe they're doing a great job, and I'm not questioning that at all, but I think just being a little more information would be helpful for me.
Absolutely.
Certainly helpful if we're being asked to continue an agreement. It'd be nice to have that report to know what are the details, like what is it we're, what are you doing with this agreement? How are you executing it? What are you doing for the citizens?
And then the second item, and I did talk to Deb ahead of time, so she wouldn't, like cry and get me or stuff. But I know with Deb leaving, we will have a process, and one part of that process is an application. And we talked at the policy meeting that there are questions already established for the application itself, but for the interview that takes place, Paul shared with us that there was each of us would have a question. And I was thinking of my friend Marion, or she's not here.
Probably online.
Yeah, online and that is, would it be beneficial for each of us to submit our questions to you and Lori to have those reviewed, to one, make sure we don't get ourselves in trouble, and number two, it's only 5 questions, that we don't overlap
Sure.
in that, and just make sure we're getting the best picture possible.
I think that's a great idea, and making sure that we're on various things that we want information about, making sure we're not overlapping. I think that's a great idea.
And I found if we give a date, I will get it done, because I did my board
Did you do
evaluation, because I
survey?
saw the date and the
Yeah,
reminder.
I was surprised. That's right.
So along with that, at the policy meeting, there were some, on the kind of the draft application, there were 3 questions. They were different. There were 3 different questions than what's in the actual procedure part. The procedure part kind of gives notice to whoever's applying, hey, these could be questions that are asked. So part of that, the follow-up is, do we want 3 questions? We could take 3 questions from the procedure part that are kind of broad questions and put those in so that we get a fuller picture in the application package when we review it. And then if each of us have a question to ask in a public meeting, then they'll have 5 questions that they're unaware of, but we might be able to refine their responses. So that was an option too. The other option was, yeah, maybe we don't have any, maybe they just give who they are, you know, what their statement of interest is, their resume, and that's about it, right? And then we just ask the 5 questions we want to ask. That's an option too. So that's what is open for discussion here.
So let me reframe it. So one option is resume application and the 5 questions, one from each of us that we would submit.
Right.
The other option is all of those things and plus 3 questions.
Or 1 or 2 or 3, yeah.
Yeah, from the procedure.
The procedure, and that, because some of the questions are really pretty broad, right? I mean, I wish I would have had it here. Maybe somebody could pull it up real quick for us. But you can see it's,
Well, so I didn't bring it because, so I drafted all of it, and I didn't bring it because it sounded like you didn't want the 3 questions in
Well,
the
that's-
application.
well, that's the
So I
other
took it
thing,
out.
is that if somebody, we want to encourage people to apply. And by having too many questions, somebody might go, I don't want to sit there and write all those responses. So that is an option too. So I mean, things to consider.
Right. I
That's
just
what
would
I,
like to get a draft ready for you all to
Right.
see, because of the tight, well, it's not a tight timeline, but I want you to feel comfortable with the application, the process. And really, if you want some questions in the application, great. One was on teamwork, one was on sort of what is your interest as a board member, and then one was on how do you create inclusive and equitable environments for students. So again, yeah, broad topics, but just 3 basic general ideas. 500 words, I think, is what we were gonna limit it, each answer to, but if you don't want those in the application, you could each craft a question that included one of those topics, but
well, we're more broad, you know, as far as if each of us had a question and submitted it to make sure it was, we could have a broader selection of questions to ask the person. But again, we don't want to discourage people from applying. And sometimes when you're busy and you look and you go, oh, I can tell by the questions, they're not looking for a person like me. Sometimes that's what happens. Or sometimes they go, oh, I don't have time to fill out 3 questions. We did have the timeline go over the weekend so that they would have more time on the weekend to address the issues.
like a Tuesday through Sunday, I think.
Yeah, it was right. It was Tuesday through Sunday
Yeah.
night. So they have 2 days on the weekend
Yeah.
or whatever their working schedule is.
Well, it'd be great if we had an excessive number of people, a large number of people applying. I think having some information other than name and that, if we did get a number to where we had to narrow it down, would be very beneficial. Otherwise, it feels like we're just kind of taking a shot in the dark.
Right. There's still a statement of interest and a resume. So they do have some writing to perform. But it is an option to add 1 additional question. And we could, you pull that up? I mean,
I'm looking, what number?
I don't think
it's 1114.
Oh, the
P.
procedure?
Yeah.
And I think it says possible topics.
Yeah, it's possible
Right.
topics, but I mean, some of them, we can just say, hey, we want 1 of these possible topics that they write about
Mhm.
in their application package, and it might save me from the question.
Is it reasonable
Yeah,
for
could they
you all
choose
to
one?
get the questions, your individual questions to us by the end of March?
Oh, yeah,
So that they can be vetted,
especially if you keep reminding us each week.
right? In bold yellow highlight?
In bold yellow highlight.
Oh,
It's on the.
Well, if we're concerned about volume, what if we had the
I gotta go
three
to-
questions that Lori had
Wow, I like that phone.
in the
Yeah,
application?
yes, all the questions should be.
Okay, if we
Mid-hearing.
had the three and they chose one.
I was thinking that too, they
Yeah.
could choose which one they wanted to do. I guess to me, I would never want to discourage anyone from applying. But at the same time, I hope that they would put some thought and time into it, right? Like, we want people who are gonna be thoughtful and take this seriously. And so more information for us about the applicants is better. That's my kind of initial reaction.
Can I read a couple of these questions? So, this is from the procedure, 1114P. Under E2, possible topics to discuss during the interview may include, but are not limited to: A, review the WASDA board standards with the group of board nominees. That might be a tough one.
Yeah.
I mean, I can't
You
even
don't
say
know
I
what it
fully
is.
understand.
That's not-
Hey, your state board of the year.
That's right.
We have them memorized.
I can do them better than most, but that's a tough one. B, give a brief biological sketch of self, training, interests, experience on policy boards, community and or school activities. C, describe the major strengths of the district. I like that one.
I like that one too.
D, describe the major shortcomings of the district. E, describe how your experience, training, or interests can contribute to the improvement of the district. G, identify any commitments which might prevent you from attending regularly scheduled meetings, participation in workshops, reviewing study materials, etc. And or H, allow the nominee the opportunity to ask any questions. Oh, I'm sorry, I missed F. That was answering board initiated questions. So we can, like Bill said, select 3 of those and just ask them to answer one that they feel, I like that approach,
Yeah.
actually. So I guess
Everybody's excited.
you like that approach?
Yeah.
So which 3 do we want to select? Let's remove the A,
First one,
which
yeah.
is the WASDA board.
Yeah, that's a different
Hold
one.
on, so what are we
Wait a
doing here? Like,
Okay.
so these 3 are gonna be the 3 questions you want on the application?
Well, Bill had,
I'd thrown out having 3, but those aren't the 3. I'm confused because those
Okay.
questions aren't what we discussed.
You want the possible topics, not like, I mean, okay, I mean, so this is your.
that's what I
this is
prefer,
your,
but you can go ahead, again, Bill's point was 3 questions. We could go with those 3 questions or 3 from here, and then the
But those aren't
person,
questions, those are topics. I
Well,
mean, and you can
topics.
generate a question, but like,
well,
I
those,
mean, you just wrote operating principles that talk a lot about collaboration and teamwork.
well, that's what we're
Yeah.
doing here.
Well,
Yeah.
but where does it, all right, I mean, I can be patient and wait, but like again, this is your process. I'm just gonna develop a process for you that you feel good about, so go for it. Yeah, just
So
just
go
tell me
ahead
what you
and
want.
read
I
read
don't
your
have my questions
questions.
with me, Paul.
You don't have them
No.
with you? Okay.
Because I took them out of the application because that's what you wanted. You didn't want them in the application.
I suggested we took them from here, and not have totally different ones. Bill's bringing up a good point, and that is, what if we had 3 questions and somebody chooses one that they want to write about?
Yeah, absolutely. So just tell me what you want.
Were those questions that were taken out similar to this or different?
So I mean, they were different, and I'm not married to those questions either, but I'm just gonna be curious to see what you come up with. Like,
Two of them were very similar to 2 of these
that.
questions. One of them was different, and the one different one had to do with, go ahead.
well, it's about the equity and
Yeah.
inclusion, which is why you're state school board of the year. I mean, so it all depends on, I mean, what you look for is what you're going to get. And if it meets and matches your core values and what you believe as a board, I mean, that's what's gotta be important to you. So that's why this has to just be a thoughtful, careful process so that you select the right person to help lead this district.
when we have open-ended questions, I think we get more responsive, what is important to that person. So, for example, when we say, describe the major shortcomings of the district, or describe the major strengths of the district, the person can elaborate on how they see the district. And it gives us a good idea of how they view their position in the district, how they view what they like about it. So I don't know, I like the open-ended questions that are in this particular document. But I'm only one guy, and that's what we're here to discuss.
So help me jog my memory, when we do this, the purpose of the application, because these questions will be on the application, yes?
Yeah, we have 3 of them, and we ask them to write about, select one to
Do we
write on.
select people from the application process to then interview and ask the other questions?
Yes,
So we whittle the pool
we
down?
whittle the pool down. Go ahead.
If we have an excess of
Yeah,
five.
if we have more than
Excess
5,
of 5.
Right.
that
So
would
we
be
do wanna-
wonderful, but
Yeah, in excess of 5.
Five.
Okay. Okay, so we do want to make sure, right, that the questions on there, on the application process really do get to what we want to know, so that we can make sure we're moving forward to this next round thoughtfully.
I would be in favor of keeping the 3 questions that you talked about in the application. If that's the question we're talking about.
That were in the application originally.
that
No,
Lori.
The ones that you just mentioned.
Over the 3 topics. I know, I was just trying to, I'm not sure I can get those on my phone, but I can send them out to you. And it's not that you have to make a decision tonight. And we can talk about it again next week, but it would just help me make sure that I can get you the final copies so that you're comfortable with it. Because we'll probably go back and forth a little bit more on this. But I'm happy to send those out so you can see them. We can take other suggestions and you can pick from a bank if you'd like. And Marianne and David can help us make sure that the process is the same for everyone and that everyone has a fair chance and.
So I think if I could suggest that what we do is table it for now. You bring those questions, Paul, maybe you look those over and those topics or whatever and kind of put them in a question form.
If the board wants to go with Lori's questions, that's fine. Like I said, 2 of Lori's questions are very similar to 2 of these possible topics to discuss on the procedure. It was just the one on the diversity, equity, and inclusion that was different than what we have there.
Gotcha.
But if we have it where we've got these 3 questions and the individual applicant can choose which topic's important to them, that gives us an idea of where they're coming from too, so.
And that's what I'd have to check with David and Marianne,
Yeah.
like can they choose?
Can they choose
right.
or do we?
Or does everyone have to do the same?
Part of the legal process is just hiring people.
Right.
They all have to answer the exact same questions.
Right.
Well, for what it's worth, I like this.
Well, it sounds like from the procedure too, that once to get into the interview process, like if we have questions, we'll be able to ask our questions as long as we ask everybody. If I have one question I want to ask, I just make sure I ask every person the same question, but it's one that I wanted to ask. In the sake of trying to make your job easier or not make it harder or take time that you don't have, would it help you to have a better definitive direction tonight and not have to email us and have this continue on?
So
I would
here's what
love
I heard.
to make that easier.
Yes, thank you, but I think you just did. Because what I can do is take the draft that we have going already, give you a copy of it so you can see, look at it. And if we want to make any tweaks or changes to it, I don't know if we want to do that next week or
Yeah.
that would be okay. And then, I mean, Paul, if it helps, I can look at the possible topics and generate a couple of questions based on those areas as well.
Well, I guess I'm a little, I like Bill's suggestion of having 3 on the application, but letting them choose one. But if it sounds like we can't do that.
Well, I don't know, I just wanted to double check. So that's all.
So I want to think about that a little more.
Yeah.
My initial thought is I have some concerns about that because we're not going to be comparing apples to apples.
Okay,
Yeah,
We just want to check.
so if they can't do that, then I would say back to 1.
One question.
One question on
Yeah,
the application.
So what I'll do is I'll give you a bank. You can choose the one that you like, and then you're each going to submit your own
Yeah.
question to us.
Yeah.
So that we can have those vetted as well
And by when?
by the end of March.
Do you really want them by the end of March, or do you want them a little sooner? So you
Well,
can-
I mean, I want to be,
Why don't we bring them to the board meeting so
Yeah.
we
So we got a
We'll be
week
right
to
here
work
and-
on.
You can, I mean, I'm just trying to be nice.
No, well, we're trying, we want you to, this isn't something that's normally part of your daily.
Yeah.
This is a new thing into your normal schedule to do this.
So by next week, just one question?
One
Yeah, I
question.
actually just wrote my question, so I'm
Okay, so
done.
So, and you'll get us the draft of the application, so yes.
Yes.
And I'll write a question for me and Bill.
All right, so, anything else for this discussion?
Can I just clarify?
No.
Yes. No more application, I'm done. For the report on Parks and Rec.
Yeah.
Offerings, participation, participation data, cost, and anything they're currently doing, since maybe the last agreement might be new, improved, updated, I don't know.
Maybe programs that we continue to have been cut
Okay.
or.
Well, they basically should report out why would we want to continue the agreement? That's essentially, I would assume the end result is why do we want to continue the agreement with them? They should tell us why.
And I just want to acknowledge David Wells in the back, who manages Parks and Rec.
Hello,
So he's
David.
taking notes, copious notes, and getting all this information. And when would you like that report?
When do we have to tackle the agreement? What's the timeline for that?
I mean, well, technically, the agreement expires August 31st, but I'm thinking that they would appreciate it sooner than later, an answer of whether or not to extend, that you'd like to extend.
So how does it fit with our board meeting schedule?
Could we shoot for April,
So I was thinking,
like April 17th? That's our board meeting? April 17th. Yeah.
Perfect.
Okay.
I was gonna throw out, hey, what if we ended the study session, so before the study session, we could discuss it. This is one of the best discussion at any study session.
Session's gonna be pretty packed.
Is it? Okay.
Yeah, we're gonna be bringing you a recommendation for a bond package from the Capital Facility Advisory Committee.
Oh, yeah.
So that'll be,
Big topic.
Snacks.
oh yeah, bring your popcorn. It's gonna be, and buckle up, so.
May study session.
That too. So May might make the city a little nervous. Thanks, Terry.
We do have open discussion in April, right? So we can openly discuss it kind of toward the end of the board meeting, but what's on the agenda for April? Is that gonna be packed as well?
No, well, I mean, we'll probably have a little bit of a carryover from the 3rd, but if you saw, if they submitted the report April 17th, you could take a look at it. If you have more questions, they can come back in May. I just, like, if they give it to you in May and you want more questions, that's
Yeah,
gonna be
okay.
June.
Yeah.
Okay,
So it's like,
Close.
yeah,
and
it's,
we can bring up the questions in the discussion.
Anything else?
board here, right here, one step.
Should actually put that in the application form.
Exactly.